Before the doors opened, I gave myself one rule: don't look at the corner. My name is Ava Mercer, and I'm a chef who's learned to keep steel steady and feelings quieter than the sizzle. I'm 31, and tonight the Willow room breathed for the first time. 23 chairs waited under warm light and white linen. I'd written each name card by hand, the ink still a little glossy, the strokes slow and careful like small prayers I could press with my thumb. In the far corner beneath an ivy wall I hung myself. I pushed 3 tables together and marked them with gold stars. Mom, Diane, brother, Noah, Aunt Paula, Uncle Roy, cousin Megan, even the kids who never finish dessert but always ask for seconds. Portland knows how to show up for new beginnings. At 6 o'clock, the door swung and the street spilled in. Laughs, wool coats, a rush of wet air. The ticket printer chattered like a small bird. Champagne corks shouldered free. Someone at table 4 said the halibut tasted like August. A boy fogged the dessert case with his breath and left a nose print shaped like a comma. I kept my sleeves rolled, my hair pinned back, the burn on my forearm badge bright. Every 10 minutes my eyes slid toward the family corner and then away, like I could will it full by refusing to check. By 6:45 we were packed. I posed for a picture with a couple celebrating 20 years and poured a round of sparkling for a birthday I'd never learned the age of. The room had a pulse, a steady one. The corner stayed empty, water glasses sweating little rings into linen like they'd been working hard at waiting. Mateo, my server, hovered close. "Chef, do you want me to seat the walk-ins there? We've turned away 2 parties." "Leave them," I said. It came out soft but final. Hope can look like composure if you don't touch it. 7:15. Still no coats draped over chairs, no lipstick on napkins, no voice I grew up recognizing before words formed. I told myself traffic, a last-minute florist detour, a grand entrance they'd laugh about later. I took another table's order and let the oven doors pull steady my hands. At 8 o'clock, I stopped pretending. That corner looked like a shrine to something no one was brave enough to bury. The rest of the room glowed, forks lifted, stories traded, but the space I'd saved for blood felt colder than the walk-in. If you're here with me in this moment, tell me where you're watching from in the comments. And hold this thought. When a table stays empty long enough, it starts telling the truth no one wants to say out loud. Closing comes in waves. The last plate's cleared, the last laugh fading into coat sleeves, the last chair nudged back into line so the room looks like it was never touched. I stood in the doorway between the kitchen and the dining room and let the sound settle, the soft hum of the cooler, the tick of metal as the pans exhaled their heat. The Willow room glowed like it understood loyalty better than people did. I turned the deadbolt at 9:48. Outside, the streetlight threw a blue wash over wet pavement. That's when he stepped from the edge of it, as if the lamplight had been keeping him folded and safe until I was alone. "Owner," he said, not a question so much as a confirmation. "Chef owner," I answered. The title fit like a jacket I'd earned. He offered his hand, firm, no squeeze that tried to prove anything. "Callum Hayes." Up close, he looked like the kind of man who doesn't waste napkins. Neat hair, quiet shoes, rain beating on a gray coat that probably had a name. He glanced past me into the dining room, then back to my face, and I could tell he was the type who cataloged restraint like an asset. "You kept it clean in there," he said. "No overreach. I've watched this place come together for months." The compliment didn't inflate or deflate anything. It landed the way truth does when you've already said it to yourself in harder language. He reached into his coat and handed me a card the color of bone, heavy, unglossed. A name, a number, nothing else. "I represent a small investment group. We move when something is ready. 6 figures to start, if it feels right. No pitch deck, no script about synergy." He spoke like someone ordering exactly what he came for, and tipping well because it was deserved. 1,000 bad offers had taught me what a good one sounds like, and this one wore no perfume. I held the card without looking at it, and watched my own reflection dull and sharpen in the window. "Thank you," I said. "Call me tomorrow," he replied. No handshake to seal it twice. He nodded once and walked off, rain smoothing his outline back into the night. That's when the bar counter started to tremble. My phone lit up, face down. It buzzed once, then again, then in a staccato that turned into a single long shiver. I flipped it over. 89 missed calls. All the same name. Mom, Diane. No texts, no apologies. Just the persistence that dresses itself as concern when it wants to be welcomed without knocking. I didn't need to ask where they'd been. I could already map the sound. A living room, a deck of cards sliding across wood, beer necks kissing the lip of a coffee table, my brother's voice stacking laughter on top of nothing like he'd invented the trick. Poker night doesn't cancel for openings. It cancels for nothing. I slid Callum's card into my apron and killed the lights, leaving the room in that half-dark that feels like the inside of a held breath. I didn't go home. Home meant Lucas would try to make the edges soft, and I needed them sharp. I sat at the bar, the leather cool under my forearms, and listened to the hum fold over itself like white noise in a clinic. Inventory could wait. Hope had already clocked out. The phone kept lighting like an ambulance you can hear 3 blocks away. Mom, 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 mom. The screen went to sleep and the room settled deeper into itself. I laid my head on the hallway bench, the one Mateo teased was too nice for staff breaks, and shut my eyes. I slept like you do on an airport floor, surface sleep, ready to move if anyone says your name. When I woke, the light through the blinds was thin and undecided. My neck ached in a way that made turning feel like admitting something. I stood, stretched, and walked to the espresso machine. The first pull came out bitter and burnt, a taste like the word almost. I plugged my phone into the outlet by the register and watched it wake up angry. Red bubbles stacked until the screen looked rash-ridden. Missed calls, voicemails. Unknown numbers that weren't unknown at all if you've ever lived in a small enough city. The aunt who adds exclamation points to soften demands. The cousin who calls just to check in, with a link to a job she wants you to invent for her. The dining room smelled faintly of lemon oil and the last edge of garlic from sauté pans that had behaved. I wiped an already clean bar and let the cloth travel the same strip of wood 3-4 times, pretending repetition could make anything true. The card in my apron pocket pressed against my hip like a promise I hadn't decided to accept out loud. The missed calls pressed back like a history that thought it still had a key. I didn't press play on a single voicemail. I didn't call anyone back. I stood in the quiet and let the machine cool, listening to it tick as the heat left its body. When the room was silent enough to hear myself think, I stared at the far corner beneath the ivy. The tables were just tables again. The truth was still sitting there, exactly where I'd left it. When the phone finally had enough charge to stop blinking, I tapped Mom's name and lifted it to my ear. She answered on the first ring like she'd been standing guard over the screen all night. "Ava, thank God. We were worried sick." "Where were you?" I asked. No hello, no patting. She brightened too fast, like flipping on a light over a stain. "We streamed your opening, honey." Noah hooked the TV to his phone. High tech, you'd laugh. "We thought it would be like we were there with you." Everyone cheered when the camera panned to the crowd. We said, "That's our Ava." Then it sort of became a little poker night. You know how your brother is. But we were thinking of you the whole time. I gripped the edge of the counter until my knuckles went bloodless. "You watched it on a TV." "Well, the important thing is we were together," she said, quick and cheerful. "We felt so bad when we saw the time. We'll make it right. We'll come by tonight with a cake and balloons. We'll get pictures for Facebook so everyone can see how proud we are. 7 o'clock? "Sure," I said. My voice sounded like someone else had borrowed it. After I hung up, I walked to the window by the prep sink and stared at the street like it could hand me instruction. I kept the doors locked that night, lights off, chairs still. At 7 sharp, they arrived anyway. Mom in a floral coat, chin lifted like a ribbon cutting. Aunt Paula with a white sheet cake sweating through plastic, the kind that tastes like wet sugar. Noah with his phone held up, framing the dark windows. They posed in front of my closed door, all smiles and angles, capturing proof they could post later with the caption already written, "Proud of our Ava." I stood in the dark kitchen and watched them through the sliver of glass like I was the ghost. When they left, their footsteps faded too quickly, as if the sidewalk had been waiting to forget them. The next morning, Mr. Whitaker shuffled in right at open, a man who never met a roomer he couldn't dress in Sunday clothes. Cap tugged low, grin ready. "Heard you had quite a night," he said, leaning on the counter like it paid rent. "Saw a gentleman shake your hand outside. Investor, huh? Big news." "It's not confirmed," I said. "I'd rather keep it private." "Of course," he said, eyes bright as a window. "Between you and me and maybe my book club." He winked and left with a pastry he didn't want. 2 hours later, my phone began a different kind of buzzing. "Cousin Megan, heard about the investor, so proud of you. Maybe I could help with social media." Another unknown. "Just checking in, sweetheart. Family helps family." Noah called, then texted when I didn't answer. "Let's talk. We've got ideas. This could be big for all of us." All of us. The phrase sat wrong in my mouth, like something spoiled you keep tasting anyway because you don't want to admit you swallowed it. I opened my laptop at the bar, the wood warm under my wrists. A blank spreadsheet blinked, cursor steady, no judgment. I typed a title. Who showed up when it counted? I started a list. Names that belonged in the room last night, names that didn't. Mateo, who stayed late without asking. Lonnie, who polished the flatware twice because he said it made him feel calm. The couple at table 4 who'd sent a bottle of sparkling back to the kitchen with a thank you note. I left a column open next to the names and wrote nothing in it. I didn't need grades. I needed a record. The day moved forward like a conveyor belt. Prep, deliveries, a reservation for 6 at 7 o'clock that I didn't have to save a corner for anymore. Every time the door opened, I looked up to see if the past had decided to walk in and edit itself. It didn't. The sun slid down the far side of the block, taking the last of the doubt with it. I closed the laptop and tucked it on the lower shelf, where I keep the good knives. They came in waves, not with apologies, but with errands they assigned to me. Late morning. Aunt Paula arrived first, cheeks high, voice sweet enough to ache. "Surprise, honey," she sang, sliding 2 bakery boxes onto the bar. "Coconut cream and banana, your favorites." "They're not," I said, but quiet. The lids fogged with condensation, sugar sweat beading like a nervous brow. Paula swept the room like a realtor. "So cozy. You should add brunch. And my neighbor's daughter needs a job. 16, great with people. Family helps family." Before I could answer, Uncle Roy pushed through the door with a jacket too tight to button and opinions already formed. He thumped the bar like it owed him back pay. "Menus need a steak that scares cardiologists. People like value. Oh, and get mugs, aprons, merch sells the story." He nodded at the bakery boxes as if they were contracts. "That's love." Around noon, the bell jingled again and Cousin Megan slid in with a phone at the ready. She filmed a slow pan of the ivy wall, my hands, the light on the glassware. "Viral potential," she said, tapping furiously. "I can run your socials. We'll announce your investor properly. Build the brand. We'll say we built it. People like we." I wiped the bar where her sleeve had left a smear. "There's nothing to announce." "Not yet," she smiled. "Timing is everything." By 2, Mom arrived with a clipboard and the kind of smile that asks you to applaud before you know why. She sat at table 6 like it was hers and spread out mock-ups printed from some free template site. "Punch cards," she said. "Buy 9, get the 10th free. People adore a stamp. And merch, Roy's right. I sourced quotes. She tapped the paper, then looked up, eyes glittering. We should also feature Noah's sauces, family brand. She left a $5 bill under her coffee cup like a tip for letting her rename my life. Late afternoon, the door opened and my brother finally appeared. He didn't knock, Noah never has. He hugged me before I could back away, breath big with charm. "Look at this place. I'm proud of you," he said, already scanning the room, measuring it like a man counting someone else's acres. "Heard about the investor. 6 figures, yeah? Huge. Here's the play. We scale smart. I run ops, staffing, logistics, expansion. You handle creative, food, aesthetics, the chefy stuff. You hate paperwork anyway. We're perfect together." He said "we" like it was a magic word that made keys fall into his hand. He paced, talking about a second location by spring, partnerships, legacy, strategy. He didn't ask how I'd made payroll or who stayed to scrub the tile at midnight. He didn't ask anything. "I'll think about it," I said. The sentence lay flat between us, cool as stainless. "That's my girl," he said, clapping my shoulder as if he'd knighted me into a company I built alone. When he left, the room exhaled. The pies sat on the counter, sweating through their own sugar. I slid them aside and set a stack of invoices where they'd been. That night, Lucas came by after close with a paper bag of takeout and that careful quiet I'd chosen him for. We ate at the bar, legs bumping, the restaurant lit to a low glow. "Your mom called me," he said, gentle. "She thinks there was a misunderstanding." "There wasn't," I said. "They don't want forgiveness." He waited. "They want access." We didn't talk for a while. The hum of the cooler filled the rest. I reached into my apron and took out the bone-white card. Callum Hayes, the number a clean line of possibility. I opened a folder, slid the card inside, and pulled a sticky note from the stack. I wrote 4 words, careful and plain. "Don't let them in." I pressed it to the folder, straightened it once, then set the folder where I could see it from the pass. The room settled around the decision like it had been waiting all day. Morning came with the kind of clear light that makes stainless look like a promise. I was stacking plates when the phone rang. Unknown number, Oregon Exchange. "Ava Mercer," I said. "Ava, it's Callum Hayes." His voice was steady as a metronome. "We're ready to move. The number is stronger than we discussed, closer to 7. Licensing, second site, scale without bloat. If you're open, I'd like you to meet my partners." The word closer hung in the air like a step already taken. "When?" "Today, noon, downtown." I said yes, looked up at the pass, and watched my reflection square its shoulders. The office was all clean lines and quiet air, glass walls, a long table, folders arranged like careful place settings. 2 associates joined Callum, both the kind who listen more than they talk. They slid a proposal across to me, terms in plain language, no sugar on the numbers. Ownership stayed where it belonged. Control stayed in my hands. They spoke about pace, not conquest. A second location before spring was possible if the foundation stayed true to the first. "I sign nothing today," I said. "Good," Callum replied. "We don't move on excitement. We move on readiness." I read every page. No one hurried me. When I closed the folder, I already knew which door I would open when I got back to the restaurant. We shook hands once. Outside, Portland's rain had softened to a mist that didn't bother with umbrellas. Back on my line, the kitchen felt small in the right way. I pulled Mateo aside by the service station, away from the noise. "You ever think about running the floor?" I asked. He blinked. "Like head server?" "Like head server," I said. "You've been doing the job anyway." His grin was quick and then disciplined. "I'm in." I found Lonnie by the dish pit, sleeves wet, earbuds dangling around his neck. He looked up like he'd been caught daydreaming. "You like order," I said. "I noticed that." He shrugged, embarrassed. "Makes the night go easier." Then start watching the skeleton of the place, I told him, where the gears catch. We'll talk manager track when you're ready. He nodded once, a serious little bow, and went back to stacking plates like they meant something beyond their weight. I said nothing to family. When texts rolled in about brunch ideas and a loyalty stamp shaped like a willow leaf, I let them pass through me like radio static. Gossip thickened around town in the way it always does when a story looks like it might grow legs. Mr. Whitaker came in for coffee twice and left with nothing but a smile I didn't feed. I kept cooking. I tuned the menu the way you tune a blade, tiny, necessary angles. 2 new small plates that played clean with the wine list, a sharper cadence to the pacing on busy nights, staff notes rewritten so a new hire could read them like a map. The sticky note sat on the folder at the end of the pass where only I could see it. Don't let them in. I let days pass without answering a single we. The restaurant learned my silence and mirrored it. Guests filled the room for what it was, not for the photograph of being there. Reviews started to land with words that felt like measurements instead of compliments. Honest, balanced, restrained. At night, after the last table left and the last glass rang thin and clear in the rack, I stood in the dim and looked at the corner beneath the ivy. It was just wood and linen again. Timing, I reminded myself. You let a stock simmer until it says yes. You don't force it to boil, and when it's ready, you make one smooth motion. Nothing theatrical, nothing loud, just a clean cut at the exact second it matters. I picked the night myself, Sunday at 7. Private event, went up on the door. I sent the staff home early with extra meals wrapped and a simple instruction, don't come back for me. I walked the floor alone before they arrived, palms on linen to smooth what didn't need smoothing. The corner beneath the ivy waited, dressed the way it should have been the first night. They came on time, of course. Punctuality is easy when a camera's involved. Aunt Paula in pearls, Uncle Roy breathing like he owned oxygen, Cousin Megan holding her phone out for selfies before she crossed the threshold. Mom followed with a floral dress and a clipboard she didn't bother to hide. Noah came last, hand on his wife's shoulder, the other on her belly like he was auditioning for kindness. Family only, Mom announced as if I'd forgotten. She lifted a glass I'd poured. To us, and to Ava's bright future. Glasses touched. The flash popped. I started service. I cooked like the room was a jury and I'd already accepted their verdict. Clean flavors, steady pacing, no tricks. A salad that snapped and sighed at the same time. A fish course that let the skin speak without shouting. A short rib that gave up its story the second a fork looked at it. I walked each plate out myself. Mom kept her clipboard beside her water glass like a place card she could flash if challenged. Noah talked legacy mid-bite. Megan tested captions under the table. No one asked me how the halibut tasted like August. Dessert came last. Pistachio torte layered neat, plates set with cream envelopes at 12 o'clock. The wax seals were green, the imprint a small willow leaf. I stood at the head of the tables and waited. "What's this?" Aunt Paula asked, smiling with all her teeth. "Thank you letters for being here tonight," I said. They tore the seals. Paper whispered. The room went quiet in a way I recognize from kitchens when the fire goes out. Uncle Roy squinted. "What is this supposed to mean?" Mom's smile failed in pieces. Megan read, voice tin-thin. The Willow Room and all related business holdings are owned solely by Ava Mercer. No family member holds or will hold any partnership, profit share, or employment role. Mom set her letter down like it burned. "Ava, no, this isn't, you can't mean this. It means exactly what it says." Roy leaned back, a laugh made of gravel. "After everything we've done, after all our support?" "Your support missed my opening," I said, "but it made time for a photograph at a locked door." Noah tried charm first. He always does. "Okay, maybe we started wrong. You know I have ideas. This could be big if we do it together. Investors come and go, but family." You told me to drop culinary school, I said, steady. You borrowed my rent money and forgot who wrote the check. Stop calling my work hours when you didn't even show up for it. His jaw set. You really think you make it without us? I reached into my apron and slid a final envelope toward him. This one is for you. He opened it. A check. $1,000. A note beneath. For your child, not for you. He looked up, wounded, turning quick to contempt. You think this makes you generous? No, I said. It makes me done. The words landed clean, no echo. Paula called me ungrateful under her breath. Roy muttered something about regret. Mom's eyes filled and emptied twice, reaching for a speech that wouldn't come. Megan's phone stayed face down. Noah's wife watched the tablecloth, one hand over her stomach like it was the only honest thing in the room. I gathered my hands at my sides. The silver glinted. The room stayed still. You made your choice the night you didn't show up, I said. This is mine. I turned and walked toward the kitchen. My heels clicked once, twice. Then the door swept shut behind me, soft as a lid finding its pot. Morning returned the room to facts. Crumpled napkins, water rings, a fork left sideways like someone quit mid-thought. The cream envelopes lay scattered across the family corner like late snow. I gathered them one by one and stacked them on the bar. Noah's was still sealed the way he'd pressed it shut again. On the back of my letter, he'd scrawled a single line in his rushed hand. You'll regret this when you need us. I set it aside like you set aside a dish that came out oversalted. Evidence of the mistake, not a meal you have to finish. At 11, Callum called. He didn't ask small questions. We're finalized on our end, he said. I'd like to start scouting sites this week. Your numbers say we can carry 2 kitchens without bleeding the first. Yes, I said. Then come in at 4. We'll sign what needs signing and leave the rest clean. The folder waited on my office shelf when I walked back there, the sticky note still bright on its face. Don't let them in. I lifted it off, smoothed the paper flat, and slid it to the inside cover where it would see less light and more use. When I returned to the floor, the dining room looked exactly like itself, which is all I ever wanted. We opened lunch as if Sunday night had been a rehearsal for quiet. Mateo ran the floor with a steadiness that made the room breathe. I watched him count beats between courses and cut the chatter on a table the second it turned into noise. After service, I caught him at the pass. Head server becomes official today, I told him. Title, rate, the whole thing. He swallowed once, nodded. I'll earn it. You already did. I found Lonnie at the back, lining glass racks until they looked like graph paper. You still paying attention to where the gears catch? I asked. Always, he said. Good. You're interim manager starting now. We'll train into it. You'll make mistakes. Make them loud so we can fix them. He grinned in that quiet way some men do when they realize someone saw the work they were doing when no one was looking. 4 o'clock came with the same steady rain that had started all this. Callum's office felt familiar now. Light, glass, air. We sat. We didn't toast. We signed in the order the tabs told us to. Ownership stayed where it should. Control stayed as language I could recite in my sleep. When we were done, Callum shook my hand. You separate business from blood, he said. Most people can't. It costs something, I said. He nodded. Everything worth holding does. I walked back to the Willow room at dusk. The street lamps wore halos and the windows held their gold. Inside, I went straight to the storage drawer where I'd kept a thing I hadn't been ready to throw away. Cream cardstock, smudged corner, gold script, reserved for family. I held it long enough to remember the way I'd written it, careful, proud, thumb pressing too hard on the flourish. Then I tore it clean in half, not anger, maintenance. I tossed both pieces into the bin and straightened the liner. On my way out, I stopped at the corner beneath the ivy and set a single candle in the center of the table. I struck a match. The flame caught, wavered, then held steady. "Thank you for not showing up," I said into the quiet. "If you had, I might still be waiting." The candle made a small circle of warm light that didn't ask anything from me. I locked the front door, checked it twice, and stood for a breath with my palm on the glass. Paper in order, people in their lanes, a room that felt like mine because it finally was. When I turned to go, the keys in my hand knocked together soft as ice and water. Behind me, the restaurant hummed, not loud, not triumphant, just ready. Weeks made a habit of themselves. Lunch filled, dinner breathed, the rash of gossip faded the way chalk does in rain. I answered emails before sunrise, wrote schedules that didn't require apologies, and slept without rehearsing speeches. Callum's team moved like people who didn't need to be seen to be effective. Leases, inspections, vendors that said yes the first time, it all clicked without spectacle. The second space sat 8 blocks north, smaller bones, brick that held heat the way a hand holds a secret. We called it Willow Room North. The soft opening wasn't a ribbon or a parade. We set the tables, tuned the lights, and let the room speak. Callum stood in a corner and smiled the way men do when a blueprint becomes a door. After the first seating, he pulled me aside by the walk-through where the servers swing and never collide. "You built this for peace, not revenge," he said. "For breath," I answered. "That's peace by another name." He left me to watch the second turn. Plates landed, rose, landed again. I could tell by the way forks paused that we had the temperature right on the ribeye and the salt right on the greens. Mateo trained the new crew like he'd always been meant to teach. Lonnie's notes were taped inside the office cabinet, clear, direct, no flourishes. I promoted them on paper the next day and felt nothing dramatic, just alignment. The family chat went quiet sometime in the middle of all that. No good mornings, no chain prayers, no links to merch suppliers disguised as love. Mom sent one text. "We're all hurt, but we still love you." I typed back, "I know, I need space." Then I muted the thread and didn't check to see who read it. A small brown envelope showed up at the original restaurant a week later, my name written in a hand I had learned to read for weather. No return address, just the old script. Inside, a photo of Noah and me as kids on the curb, ice cream running down our wrists, mouths open in a laugh too big for the frame. On the back, "Don't forget where you came from." I slid the photo into the drawer with the wine keys and a spare thermometer. Not trash, not altar. Evidence that memory isn't the same as belonging. Reviews arrived the way rain does in this city, steady, then harder all at once. Words like honest and composed, which felt like measurements more than applause. Lucas came by after close with cider and a bag of takeout and leaned on the bar like he was holding the room steady for me. "You're quieter lately," he said. I stopped waiting for permission to be proud. He touched my hand, brief and sure. "Then you're finally home." Later that night, I locked up the north location and walked back down to the original, the street shiny enough to double everything. Inside, I set the alarm, checked the pass, and paused at the corner beneath the ivy. The candle had burned down to a ring of wax, a neat circle that said what it needed to say, and no more. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to the top of the family thread. The last pinned message was mine from opening day. "Tonight's the night. Wouldn't be the same without you." I hovered over it, then archived the chat, not erased, just put somewhere it couldn't interrupt. Outside, the rain wasn't the kind that ruins things. It washed. I stepped into it without my hood. Keys knocked together in my pocket, small and honest. Behind me, both rooms held their gold and their quiet. Not monuments to winning, just proof that choosing yourself doesn't require a drum roll. Peace doesn't need a sequel.